I just built a database-powered app with end-to-end type safety and real-time updates without needing to learn even one single thing about managing a database. And you can too. I'm Jason Langsdorf. Let's learn something new. If you're a web dev like me, you're always coming up with new ideas for apps. Okay, I got it. Hot or not for dogs.
Why would anybody?
We're gonna be rich. There's just one problem. Most of my app ideas require a database. And look, I don't know about you, but when I start thinking about the setup, cost, and security implications of managing a database, I tend to solve my app problems in one way. I convince myself that the app idea wasn't that good, and I give up. But that was before I learned about this new wave of innovation in the data space that is working on making database management much more approachable for people who would call themselves front-end developers like me. Convex is one of the companies pushing this space forward, and they reached out to me to sponsor a video to help web devs like you and I get over the fear of working with databases in our apps. We started out with our app having all of the front-end code. What it shows right now is a list of pups. Each one has some reactions that we can add. And then we can toggle over to the stats view to see what the cumulative stats are for each reaction on each pup. Hot or not for dogs. I'm a genius. Right now, all this data is hard-coded, so we're gonna use Convex to store both the pup data and the reaction data. So to start the app, we're gonna run npm run dev in our terminal. And next, we need Convex to be running. So we're gonna split this terminal into two, move back into the project folder, and then we're gonna run npm install convex to get the Convex tools. And then we're gonna run npx convex dev. This will initialize a new Convex project if you've never done it before, and otherwise it starts running Convex in the background. Now, because we want type safety and autocomplete for our whole project wherever data is concerned, we're gonna be defining a schema. So if we open up our sidebar here, we can see that a new folder has been created by Convex called Convex. And in it, we're gonna create a file called schema.ts. Inside this schema.ts, we get a define schema, define table, and s from convex/schema. We export define schema as the default export, and inside of that, we want to define our data. So we've got two tables in this app, one for our pups and one for our reactions, each of which is the value of define table. And then we define our fields inside of here. So name and photo for the pups, pup and type for the reactions. The name and photo are strings, nice and simple. And then in the reactions, we get a little more interesting. So for the pups, we want to reference to a pup by their ID, which will be auto-generated by Convex. And for types, we only have three allowed types of reactions. We have a heart, we have a cute, and we have star eyes. Those are the only three things that somebody can do, and we want to be explicit about that. So we use a union and a literal, which means that only these three values can be passed into this type field or we'll get an error. This configured everything for us on the back end so that we don't need to open a dashboard, deal with additional config. We just tell Convex what the data schema looks like, and it does the rest. Next, let's define how we create entries and then read them back out of the tables we just defined. We'll start with the pups. So I'm going to create a new file called pups.ts in the Convex folder. So our first step is going to be to import mutation and query from a generated server file that Convex put together for us based on our schema. Next, we want to export functions that'll let us interact with our database. So the first one that we want to set up is called mutation. That'll allow us to add a new entry to the database. And this mutation function takes a function as its argument. The first argument is the context for Convex, and that'll let us destructure it. And what I need is the database. So I'll let autocomplete be my friend there. Next, db.insert, and we can see here that when I put these quotes in, it auto-completes and shows me pups and reactions. Those are the tables we defined, so we're already benefiting from this end-to-end type safety. Our schema is already telling us what is allowed inside of this function. So I'm gonna select pups, and then the second thing that we need is the field values. And because, again, type safety, we have the name and the photo as strings already set up as our allowed arguments. Autocomplete again, we're gonna get the name and the photo. And because we don't know what these are, we need to accept them as arguments. Now we have an add function that allows us to insert into the pups table a name and a photo, which will be a new entry for a pup. Let's do the same thing for reading a pup entry. We get the context object and destructure to get the DB. This one's going to be async because we're going to wait for a query. And again, the query is going to let us autocomplete so it gets pups. And then once we've done the query, we can do a .collect. We are going to get all of the pup entries and read those out. The schema is set up on the back end, but we need to make sure that we've got access to it in React. So to do that, open up main.tsx and then import the Convex provider and Convex React client from convex/react. Next, we instantiate a new Convex React client using the Convex URL that was stored in our .env.local. Finally, we need to wrap the relevant parts of our React app, which in this case is the toggle component, with the Convex provider and pass in the Convex client that we just created. So we'll save that, which means that our entire app now has access to the Convex provider. So we can close that. We're done with it. Next, let's get our pups actually loading on the page. Right now, we're using seed data. We want this to be loaded from Convex. To use Convex data in the app, we're going to start by importing some generated helpers. Use query and use mutation are generated by Convex and live in this convex_generated/react. We want to query the database instead of using our hard-coded data. So we're going to delete seed pups and instead run use query. And when I start to type here, we can see that it auto-completes for us with our available query. Right now we have 1 to get the pups. When I save this page, Vite will automatically reload. And if I come out here, we can see we've got an empty database. And that is because we haven't stored any pups in the database yet. The good news is we already have a check to see if there are no pups and to then attempt to load our seed data into the database. We just have this add pup hard-coded as a no-op right now. So what we're going to do is replace that with a use mutation. And again, we get that autocomplete to our only available mutation, which is pups add. We will be adding all of our pups to the database, which we can see here. But right now, the reactions don't work. Nothing is happening. We're still using our hard-coded data. So let's fix that. Go into the Convex folder, create a new file, call it reactions.ts. Start by importing that mutation and query again. Our query to add a reaction is just about the same as the one to add a new pup. It's a different table and different field types, but the setup is overall exactly the same. Now, reading reactions is going to be different because we are using a bar chart component called React Charts. And a React chart needs data to follow a specific format. So we're going to define the types for that specific format. It takes a data series, which has a label and an array of data. And the data point is an array of objects that contain a name and a count in our use case. To define it, we need some reaction types out of our helper files. And then we're going to write a pretty gnarly reducer. To save you from watching me type, I'm going to copy paste it, but let's run through what it does. So first and foremost, we're going to run a query against the reactions table to get all of our raw reactions data, which is just going to be a list of the pup ID and the type of reaction that it was. Next, we go into each reaction and map over it to add in the pup's name, which we'll do by running a secondary query against the pups database. And we do that by running db.get, which lets us use a specific ID to retrieve any document stored in Convex. And finally, we run a nested reducer, which I know is a lot, but here's what's happening. We start by building out our data series, which has a label and data. The label is the type of reaction. The data is the reactions for each dog contained within. And we filter down to make sure that each one has a name so that we don't have any empty entries. We reduce over each of the reactions to make sure that we're sending a single entry per dog back with its name and then a count of the reactions as opposed to individual reactions. This is what allows us to get group data when we hover over each dog and see all 3 reaction types with a total count. It's important to note that by putting this reducer inside of our query, we're getting caching for free out of Convex. So until the data changes, it'll only need to run this once, no matter how many people load it. Next, let's hook up the buttons in our list so that the reactions are actually saved to the database. And to do this, we're going to replace add reaction with use mutation. And then we let autocomplete do the work for us. We see reactions add is there now, and it's already being called down here with the pup ID and the reaction name. So we can come out here and start saving some reactions. To display the reactions, let's go into the bar chart component and import the use query generated hook. We're also going to be able to get rid of this placeholder reaction data because we don't need it anymore. And down here, we will replace it with a use query call. And using autocomplete, we can reactions get by pup. If we save this and head back out, go to our stats view, we now have one reaction per pup. If I go back out to the main view, give a few more to Floof because let's be honest, Floof deserves it. Come back to the stats view and we can see that the data is updated. We now have Floof handily in the lead. And that's a running app. The only thing that's left to do is deploy it, which we can do by committing all of our changes. Head over into the Git controls. I'm going to use the VS Code UI. You can use whatever you want. Add all of these into a single commit. Say add Convex database, commit to sync those changes so that they're up on GitHub. Next step is to go to app.netlify.com and we're going to create a new site. And now we're going to need to make a few changes in here. So the first one is update the build command to use npx convex deploy, double ampersands, and then npm run build. This lets Convex set up all the things it needs to do before we try to build the site. Next, we want to add an environment variable. This is going to be called convex deploy key. And to get this value, we're going to head over to dashboard.convex.dev. Go into our production site, go to settings and generate a deploy key, copy that and drop it into your environment variable value. Deploy the site. And once that's done deploying, we can click through, you can see our live site on the internet. It's running, but it's with a different data set. So we don't have any stats yet. So let's give each of our dogs some reactions. And now when we head over to our stats, we get stats. But wait, because there's more. So now we've got two instances of this site running side by side. And when I start to add reactions, we get live reactive updates for free. We didn't have to do anything. We didn't have to configure anything. This is just a built-in feature of Convex. It just works and it's incredible. For bonus points, you can get it on your phone and then we can just start adding reactions and you can watch the counts go up. This reactivity is so built in that it even works if you go in here and delete something out of your dashboard. You'll see a live update on the site. This is such a cool feature. It's so nice to not have to think about it and to have it just work. I always want live updates and I never take the time to build them. So knowing that I don't have to really makes my day. For web devs who would consider themselves to be front-end devs or even front of the front-end devs, I know that data can feel like a lot, but hopefully this video made it feel a little less intimidating and got you a little excited about building some of those more data-intensive apps on your own. If you want to learn more about Convex, check out convex.dev or watch this suggested video. Thanks, friends. We'll see you next time.